This is video number 9. We're in chapter 2, The Manipulated Mind, Denise Wynn. I will try to finish up. The Reverend Ian Ramage is upset by what he sees as Sargent's somewhat over-generous application of Pavlovian findings to events in the ordinary world. He finds large structural flaws in Sargent's reasoning, particularly as regards Sargent's claim that the religious conversion syndrome is all due to goings-on in the brain cortex. Of course, it is his particular interest to disprove such a connection, but his reasoning is clear and worth consideration. In his battle for the free mind, he makes a distinction between breakdown and emotional abreaction, whereas Sargent appears to link them. In the traumatic experiences which lead to battle neurosis and the terrors deliberately imposed in brainwashing, we may well have processes roughly parallel to the experimental stress situations imposed on Pavlov's dogs, resulting in various stages of abnormal behavior and culminating in terminal exhaustion and collapse. However, it must be pointed out that nowhere in these experiments with dogs, as described either by Dr. Sargent or by Pavlov himself, do we see anything that even looks like emotional abreaction. The abnormal behavior of Pavlov's dogs was always the direct result of imposed stresses, not of the release or acting out of pent-up emotions. To restore them after breakdown, Pavlov's dogs were never treated abreactively, but were given simple sedation. The fact is that emotional abreaction simply will not fit in at all into the Pavlovian formula of breakdown under stress, because it is psychologically and dynamically the exact opposite of such a process. It is the recovery from breakdown. When we inquire what are the common features of both breakdown and recovery which lead Dr. Sargent to see both processes as amenable to similar explanations, we find that both involve something which can be described as collapse, and both involve striking changes in behavior. However, an examination of Dr. Sargent's own evidence will show very clearly that the changes in behavior involved in the two processes are exactly opposite. That in the respective contexts of breakdown and abreactive recovery, the word collapse means two entirely different things. The collapse, which supervenes as a result of intolerable strain, is a condition which endures for some time and is manifest in breakdown. Restriction of personality, debilitating symptoms and patterns of abnormal behavior, the collapse that supervenes at the end of emotional abreaction is a comparatively short-lived physical exhaustion resulting from violent emotional discharge. It soon passes quite spontaneously, to be followed at once by healing, liberation of personality, and of the disappearance of neurotic symptoms and abnormal behavior patterns. Ramage is referring in the last sentences above to the experience of the shell-shocked soldiers. He comments on the fact that Sargent seems to link the violent emotional experience of Pavlov's dogs and the flood serving to wipe out all their carefully conditioned reflexes to the emotional discharge of the soldiers, which wiped out all their previous neurotic symptoms, such as limb paralysis or tics. This, Ramage says, implies that in Sargent's mind, conditioned reflexes and neurotic symptoms are essentially the same. The soldiers' neurotic symptoms were developed as a defense against facing up to what had happened to them in their war experience. Once the experience had been brought to the surface and the associated feelings expressed, the neurotic defense system was no longer necessary. Pavlov's dogs did not develop of their own free will, but the tendency to salivate at the sound of the bell or to associate the sight of an ellipse with a reward. They were taught to do so. The conditioned behavior was not a defense. Ramage does not deny Sargent's thesis altogether. He accepts that the imposition of intolerable stress can have the effects he describes and can therefore be applied to the brainwashing phenomenon. But cathartic emotional discharge leading to healing is something else, and that is what is going on, he says, in therapeutic abreaction and religious conversion experiences. Not even Sargent has maintained that brainwashing or sudden conversions necessarily last forever. He said, It is one thing to make the mind of a normal person break down under intolerable stress, eradicate old ideas and behavior patterns and plant new ones in the vacant soil. It is quite another to make these new ideas take firm root. The only way to do so, he says, is to consolidate the gains made. So Wesley, for instance, after winning converts at his emotional hellfire sermons, quickly divided his new flock into groups which met at least once a week. Other preachers of his ilk, who thought their work was done once conversion was achieved, soon lost most of those they had so dramatically won for God. An effective method of consolidating the ground won by political or religious conversion techniques is to maintain controlled fear and tension, says Sargent, and cites the Chinese Communist doctrine that wrong thought is as evil as wrong action. Such a doctrine would have the highly desirable outcome that most would not dare to question the rightness of what they have come to believe, as that would clearly be wrong thought, and punishable should the wrong thought slip out unintentionally in conversation or even in one's sleep. Quite clearly, brainwashing does not last forever. If it actually occurred in the first place, once the brainwashed individual ceases to be in the environment where the inculcated ideas are current. The American POWs who returned home did not retain communist ideals. Many, of course, may not have believed them in the first place, but only collaborated to make life easier. Lifton subjects, once they reached Hong Kong, did not stay reformed either, but the psychological effects of the whole process were long-lasting. Most couldn't instantly adapt to Western life. It was as if, Lifton says, they had some psychological business to attend to reenact what had happened and master it. Of course, they also felt alienated in their new country, as most of the Westerners had lived in China for very many years. Years later, however, they were still grappling with powerful emotions and ideas implanted by the communists, although hotly anti-communist. Many still had fears of annihilation, but some claimed that they felt strengthened because they had the experience of testing out their emotional limits in a way few of us are ever called on to do, and they survived. And I'm going to stop it right here because this is clearly not going to fit into this short little video. So I will finish this off in the next video. It will be really short, but that's what I have to do. We are in The Manipulated Mind. We were reading from chapter 2. See you in the next video.